What's up guys, welcome back to a brand new video on Lex Selects. You saw me react recently to my championship table predictions. Now I'm going to have double dose of that medicine and react to my Premier League predictions. So I typically do this as well. It's one of those ones where it's either really good or it's disastrous. So I'm hoping it's going to be the first one of those and it's actually alright. So we're going to find out how we do with that. This is going to be the last video that I do before I do any coverage with the Euros as well. So I cannot believe how close the Euros is now. So expect to see some more content coming very soon regarding the Euros. I want to try and organise a sweepstake. I want to try and organise so many things. So keep your eyes peeled for more content on Lex Selects. So certainly will be more things coming soon. If you guys enjoy this video, please smash the like button. It really does help the growth of this channel. Please do hit the subscribe button if you've not done so too. And please also share the channel as well. All three of these things are free to do and they really help. But without any further ado, let's now react to how I did predicting the Premier League. So we're starting things off really well actually. So I predicted Sheffield United correctly to finish rock bottom in 20th. Didn't anticipate to finish as low points as they did. In fact, the whole bottom three, I really did not anticipate that any of the newly promoted sides of the Championship would struggle this much. This has got to be, I think it's only been the second occasion, if I can remember, where all three newly promoted sides have gone straight back down. And this has been certainly one of the striking years of the contrast between the Championship and the Premier League. Sheffield United, we prided them for being a decent defensive opposition with some good individual players. However, this season, they couldn't be anything but defensively, good, because they have conceded the most goals in modern Premier League history. It's insane, really. And I do fear that they may not react too well going back down to the Championship. I consider them being a pretty steady side of the Championship typically, but this was such a poor season on their standards, and I really do fear that things could be quite difficult for them going into next year. So coming in at 19th place, my first incorrect position is Wolves. So I think a lot of people predicted Wolves to go down based on how poor their form was under Julian Lopetegui near the end of last season. When I heard that Lopetegui was leaving them literally days before the season, I thought, okay then. But I mean, I was intrigued to see what would happen, but blimey, I thought that's it, final nail of the coffin. They're so unprepared. O'Neill comes in and my gosh, I mean, Wolves look a completely different side. So they finished in the end, I believe it was 14th or 15th place in the end, but they did really well, and actually I felt they could have finished higher had they not had so many decisions go against them. Their first game of the season against Manchester United, my goodness me, they were so unlucky. So many VAR decisions going against them as well. And they did vote to scrap VAR entirely. Unfortunately for them, it was a 19-1 favourite to keep VAR next season, but with some improvements. And right now, I think Wolves as a whole just don't feel any trust with the officials, but with VAR as a technology. Personally, I think the issue is the people running it rather than the actual system. And if the automated offside is certainly coming next season, I think that will at least fix any offside doubts that we have. But what we need to establish is the subjectivity of handballs, penalties, and whether things are yellow or red cards. I think we need to establish the subjectivity and not change it so often. That, for me, is what is really getting people right in their nerves about it. It's the whole subjectivity thing, which, I've got to be honest, is the most difficult thing to solve. Because everyone's going to have a different opinion, and unfortunately, I don't care who you are, no one is going to have no element of bias. They could sound absolutely, pro every club to get their way, but unfortunately, if there is an association with a Premier League club or any sort of team with some locality, unfortunately there is an element of bias that creeps in. You have to get an independent board, which is why you need an independent board for these things that will not be drawn by bias and objectivity. How do you think that I've have been getting those sorts of key terms? That's the exam that I've been doing this past couple of weeks or so, an actual audit exam. So it's really as boring as it sounds, but I'm making a point that the whole objectivity thing is what is preventing, you know, this sort of thing from getting resolved, unfortunately. But on this prediction, yeah, I was certainly off, and I gotta give a good shout out to O'Neill. I think he's done a sensational job. Do not scratch your eyes, guys. We are starting this off with 2 correct predictions out of 3. I did not anticipate this, and again, like the Plymouth prediction I did when I did my championship prediction, I really had that gut feeling when Luton were up. I felt they were going to be close, but not quite close enough to survive. Now, in the end of it, they were competitive for pretty much 95% of the season to avoid the drop, albeit that was helped with Everton and Nottingham Forest getting points deductions, I would argue that that was very unfair for both of them. But without those points deductions, Luton would have been cut adrift by quite a fair distance, unfortunately. And they did the better out of the 3 newly promoted sides in the end, albeit Burnley was quite close in the end when Burnley started to pick up some form. But Luton, I personally felt, with their attitude, I think they definitely performed the best out of the 3 newly promoted sides. And I didn't anticipate that. I always thought it was going to be Burnley, but it was Luton Town in the end. And I do think they are going to be the side that best equipped to attack the championship out of the 3 that have gone down with them. So Luton could potentially attack the championship next year, but I will be intrigued to see if there's going to be any major changes in that squad. The way that this is going, this is turning out to be one of my best table predictions ever. Only 5 places wrong out of the first 4 positions is sensational. So I correctly predicted Forest to finish 17th. Again, gut feeling. I really did have that gut feeling. Now, I definitely did not anticipate them to really solidify that position based on points deductions. Getting points deductions in the Premier League as a whole was something I didn't really anticipate that would happen this season. But it's certainly going to be an interesting one. And the fact we're going to have Leicester, you know, being in a very bad position, you know, with no manager currently, and going to be with those points deductions for next year, it's, you know, it's certainly not going to end there. We're certainly going to have more occasions of this. And right now, I did feel bad for Forest. You know, if they did go down, I actually would have had a little bit of sympathy in the manner that they did, you know, would have gone down. But they survived in the end. They picked up enough results. They had some great individual players with Elanga, Hudson-Odoi, Morgan Gibbs-White. Those 3 for me have been the standout players for this Nottingham Forest side. So in the end, I'm pleased that they're up, and I'm pleased for them that they've got another season in the Prem. So, nearly 3 in a row. I predicted Everton to finish 16th, but they finished 15th. I was 1 place off. So close. So close. But, again, I think that was certainly aided by the points deductions that they got. Then there was some, resolved, and then they got an additional one. So, Everton especially I felt sorry for, because they were receiving news of bad, good, then followed by bad news regarding their points deductions position. So they certainly been toyed around the most regarding the deductions this year. But Sean Dyche, I've got to say it, I think on the whole is a safe pair of hands in the Premier League, and he has proven it here. And he has had a lot of his squad injured for a lot of the season, and has still found a way to get enough points on the board to help them out. Now, they did have a pretty decent start to the season. Then they had a really poor form, actually, right in the middle part of the season. And then right at the end of the season, when they required it, they just accrued enough points, got the safe amount of points that they needed, despite the deductions, and they survived. It's going to be really, really interesting to see how things go around with Everton. And will there be potential more eye-catching bits of news happening outside regarding this club? I think their best win of the season has got to be against Liverpool as well. They were sensational in that Merseyside derby. Wheels are slightly falling off now in these predictions. I predicted West Ham to finish 15th despite finishing in 9th in the end. So where did I go wrong here? I felt that potentially European competition in Europa League would have actually had a bit more of an impact on them. But I've got to be honest, stats would tell you that they should be around that position. But I've got to say, I think this region of the table didn't really score too many points. And I don't think there's many points that separate that middle part of the table anyway. But it does look a lot worse than what it actually was. And I certainly would have expected West Ham, based on the squad, to be much higher than 15th as well. So, I don't know, maybe I was a bit pessimistic with David Moyes. And in the end, fans got what they requested for as a whole to get rid of him. Lopetegui looks like he is coming in and he's going to be in charge of West Ham. I think that's going to be an interesting appointment. Of course, a manager with European pedigree, and I think that is the approach that West Ham are going to be looking towards. So I've got to say, fair play to them. They are a club with ambition, certainly showing more sensible ambition than a certain other team in London is at the moment. 14th place, I predicted Bournemouth, so I was actually in the camp for predicting Bournemouth to survive. I thought I would have been a bit arrogant, thinking, oh, Bournemouth survived pretty, fortunately last year. They could struggle next year, but no, I backed them, and I think potentially it was just down to the squads, I think. And I looked at Areola being a very intriguing appointment, and I'm pleased in myself, actually, that I predicted Bournemouth to not only survive, but survive pretty comfortably. I was wrong, don't get me wrong, but they finished 12th and I predicted 14th. And I gotta say, I don't actually think that's too bad for me. So that could have been a terrible prediction, but it turns out it wasn't too bad in the end. So yeah, quite pleased with myself with that one, actually. The good times are continuing. I don't know what's going on this year, but already I've got 4 correct teams in the correct position, and we're only at 13th place currently. So Fulham, I correctly predicted. Now, this to me is going to be like Bristol City for the Championship, a mid-table side which, if you were to get it correct, it is, a godsend, because a lot of the time in the mid-table sides, we're either way off or we're just close, but we're not quite there. It's very difficult to get a team to the exact position. So, pleased with that. Fulham's certainly had a season, a good portion, then a bad portion, and a good portion, and a bad portion again. So, not really a consistently good season from Fulham, but just about enough for them to be, right up there. It's just a question now, do they expect to try and push for European tours and stuff like that? But I think at this moment they can't really have too many complaints. They're proving right now to be a pretty stable Premier League club, and we'll have to see if that continues into next year. If you want to see a way to damage your morale, look no further here. So I was saying this is turning out to be my best predictions ever. Then we follow with Burnley, who I was wrong by 7 whole places. That is my worst prediction as of now. Wow. I mean, a lot of us, I think, got Burnley wrong. Some, I think, would have predicted Burnley to go down, anticipating Vincent Kompany's style of play not to work in the Prem. And whilst I don't think it did work, I actually felt more or less let down by the squad of players. I actually think the squad that Kompany was given for the Premier League was worse than the Championships, honestly. So I do think Kompany almost had his hands tied behind his back, whether it's just a disagreement with the recruitment or it's just poor choice in recruitment. I do feel a bit bad for him there. He's been given a great job out of it. I mean, who goes from Burnley to Bayern Munich? I never thought I'd see that in 2024 especially. But I think Burnley next year certainly going to be interesting. I think they're looking at Craig Bellamy potentially being recruited from assistant to head coach. That is, I think, going to be an interesting decision. It'll be deemed as a pretty safe, economical decision. But whether that is the correct one, we're just going to have to wait and see what happens within the Championship. So, yeah, Burnley off by 7 places. I'm slightly annoyed at that, but I'm not kicking myself over it because many other creators have done the same thing as well. So here we go with another close one. I predicted Crystal Palace to finish 11th, and in the end they finished 10th. I could not believe it, because Crystal Palace never really finished top half, but they did this time, and they finally broke that curse. Roy Hodgson was keeping Crystal Palace afloat, but they were within, looking over fears of relegation, and even if they kept Roy Hodgson, I actually felt Crystal Palace still would have survived, but Glasner has certainly improved this squad, by margins I wouldn't even expect. The football that they were playing right at the end of the season makes you think that they were a team chasing top 6 or top 4, actually. So I'm really excited to see where Crystal Palace goes. Now, there's already lots of interest with Michael Elise, for instance. So if they let go of him, will that set the team down? I personally don't think it will. I actually think Glasner has got so many good options that he can already get. And the fact he's got a full transfer window is already making me very excited to see what he can offer. So, very good first impressions from Glasner. Let's see if he can carry that on and take Crystal Palace into stronger positions in the league. So this next prediction is not that great, sadly. We've made it to the top half of the table, but I predicted Brentford to finish 10th. Why? Did I not think that Ivan Toney being missing for as long as the season as he did would make them struggle? And I gotta say, I think Brentford started okay, but then, likewise with Everton, they just suddenly had a really poor run of form. And then yeah, they did recover it slightly when Tony came back, but they weren't spectacular from it. And I won't lie, I think Brentford is going to be one of those sides which I will be keeping a very close eye on next year, because they've certainly not given me a lot of faith that they are a stable Premier League club yet. They're not really like in Fulham's position yet for me, so I do think they need another season to survive. I think them and Forest are two sides that I'm definitely going to keep an eye on to see if one of the newly promoted sides in Ipswich, Southampton and Leicester could potentially overtake one of them, because certainly they'll be feeling like that they can be really competitive in this league this year. Ninth place, I predicted Brighton, so they finished 11th, and I gotta say, I was pleasantly surprised how bad their form had fallen off near the tail end of the season. Maybe it was due to the players knowing that De Zerbi was already leaving at one point in the season. It did feel like that things were going okay, like the normal Brighton model, and then injuries started piling up. They had European commitments, which was difficult for them. I think that's why I predicted them in 9th and not any higher, because of the European commitments, but I should have predicted them to finish a bit lower based on that by the looks of things. So I do think I was slightly off here, but 2 places is not terrible, to be fair. But I'm going to be more intrigued to see how Brighton go on with a brand new manager. It's going to certainly make things very, very interesting. Coming up next in my predictions was Tottenham Hotspur. I've predicted them to finish in 8th. They finished 5th. They certainly played so much better than I expected under Ange Ball, and I really do think Ange Ball should be given more time. I really do think so. I do think give Postecoglou a transfer window. I think he can really make Spurs into a thriving, exciting team. I do think there are fundamental things that he requires. I think a better back line is certainly required, and potentially just more depth in the attacking areas. But other than that, I really do think Spurs can be a side that can mix it within the teams, fighting, for top 4. They really, really can. And they probably should have been top 4, really, considering how competitive they were at the start of the season. Ultimately, they did lose out to that place to Aston Villa in the end, but I'll give Spurs a bit of credit there. I felt they did really, really well. And yeah, certainly underestimated them based on my predictions there. Looks like another team I underestimated was Aston Villa. They also finished 3 places higher than I expected, and they've got Champions League football. Do not scratch your eyes, but Aston Villa have got Champions League football. That is sensational. Well done to Aston Villa and Unai Emery. Certainly one of the biggest shocks this season, but they've played, like a team that they were always around top 4. They were sensational at times, Aston Villa, and I'm really pleased for them, because at the start of the season, things weren't looking too great, but the football that they were playing showed that there was something there, and I'm really pleased the results started filtering through, and they showed the potential that this Aston Villa side showed. So I'm pleased for them. Whether they'll do well in the Champions League is hard to say, but I'm pleased for them for the opportunity more than anything. I'm really pleased that Champions League is going back to the Midlands, and I'm really, really excited to see how they get on with it. And fair play to them. They're another side that have proven me wrong in this region of the table. One region of the table I did correctly predict, however, was Chelsea, finishing 6th. Now, certainly for the majority of the season, I thought I was being too deluded that Chelsea were going to go back to their ways fighting for top 6. But things started turning around in the turn of the new year, and maybe just forget the Arsenal defeat. All the other games going round in this year have been sensational for Chelsea. Cole Palmer, what a player he's turned out to be. Definitely one of the best signings that I can remember in Chelsea's recent history. There were also some questionable signings, I won't get you wrong, especially ones in the defender position. But I think if the right decisions can be made regarding the defenders, I think things could be interesting. But from looking like that we could really have something under Pochettino, the board dismissed him. And I think a lot of it is really due to the fact that it's Conference League, and that was out of Chelsea's control. This was ultimately done by Manchester United winning the FA Cup in the end. But regardless, I think they've almost forgotten where Chelsea were, and they've almost expected a wizard to come in and to conjure up a Man City version side, within, just a pre-season. It doesn't work like that. And I do fear where the board is going with Chelsea, it's something that I'm really being sceptical for now, and I really can't guarantee anything. It's just Life's too short to be a Chelsea manager now these days, and Maresca, I really do fear for him. I really do hope he's not eaten alive. And it feels like at the moment that they are trying to go around the managerial module of getting a Pep assistant in. So Arsenal did that with Mikel Arteta. Chelsea are now doing it with Enzo Maresca. But it doesn't always work like that. You know, I hope it works. I really do hope it does. But I won't lie, I'm a little bit nervous. I really am. I really, really hope that Chelsea won't regret that decision, because I certainly would if I was in the board. Coming up next is Newcastle. I predicted them in 5th place, where they finished 7th instead. So I did think Newcastle would drop slightly for Champions League, but I did not anticipate the level of injuries and Van Leeuwen, for Chelsea and Spurs to an extent as well. The amount of injuries this year has been immense in around that region of the table, who expect to play at a higher intensity to get those results to be higher in the league. And yeah, a lot of those sides struggled for it and have finished lower than they probably should have done, really. But yeah, certainly didn't anticipate Chelsea to overtake them in the end. But 7th place, I wouldn't say is a disastrous season for Newcastle, but it's certainly not one that they will be expecting next year. But I like that it looks like they're giving Eddie Howe time and they're allowing him to get another transfer window in. It looks like that they're a board that's switched on and knows that Eddie Howe really had scarce resources to deal with. And they've got to do it, I think, with proper sustainability rules as well. So it's going to be quite difficult for them to potentially make any big money transfers this year. So yeah, Newcastle are going to have to really deal with the squad that they've got at the moment, and we'll see if they can potentially kick on from this, because I certainly think they can with no European football. Now let's move on to the top 4. So Liverpool I put down as 4th. They finished 3rd in the end, so I was only 1 place off in or around that region of the table. It did look like at one point when they won the Carabao Cup, they were on course for another quadruple, but then it kind of derailed after Manchester United in the FA Cup. And yeah, in the league, there was just, again, many injuries for this Liverpool side, where they had to really fill some spaces in with players playing out of position. And ultimately, just that form, it got too much for them too quickly. And it was a bit unfortunate in the manner that it happened. And next year for Liverpool, very interesting. No Jurgen Klopp. Arne Slot is now the new boss for Liverpool. Whether if he was the #1 target, we won't talk about that. But regardless, it's a Liverpool side, so I'm going to be intrigued to see how they get on. But yeah, Arne Slot in the Premier League, that's going to be certainly an interesting one. And Liverpool, I think next year is going to be more difficult to predict. 3rd place, Arsenal, 1 place off again, so close. Honestly, if I just move both of them up by 1, that'd be another 2 correct positions. So this is the very close margins that I'm missing out this year. I mean, alongside with, 5 correct positions, there are also up to 4 sides I was 1 place off. Could you imagine if I got those 4 correct? Anyway, Arsenal were sensational, as I did anticipate them. I just imagined Manchester United doing better, but I can't tell you why. So let's actually jump straight ahead and show you who I predicted 2nd. That was Man United. 6 places off, and terrible prediction. Terrible prediction. I must have seen something in Erik ten Hag's style of football that made me think, oh, you know what? I think they could challenge. They never looked like challenging from game week 1. I knew from their shoddy performance against Wolves in the first game of the season, I thought, oh dear, they do not look like a team who could finish 2nd. And lo and behold, they finished 8th. And actually, I felt like it was a bit of a delayed positional finish in the end. Manchester United was still, flirting with top 4 for majority of the season, but then again, likewise with Liverpool, the form built up, the injuries racked up as well for them, and then ultimately they just collapsed, fell off a cliff. But they can see a silver lining in this season for winning the FA Cup over their rivals Manchester City, meaning that they nicked a Europa League place of Chelsea, which makes me very sad. But they did ultimately ended it well. Saga is going to be interesting regarding the managerial situation and new ownership situation as well. And what's going to happen with the board, I really have no idea what's going to happen there. But it is certainly a soap opera like it always is with Manchester United. So I anticipate that's going to make things interesting. And they'll be there or thereabouts, I think, regardless of what manager they get potentially. So that does mean, again, Manchester City win. And I correctly predicted it. It is becoming a little bit predictable, I can't lie. But I think that's just a testament to how well Man City are organised. with their players, their resources, their ownership, just everything is the finished article. It's where teams are, striving to be, but yeah, it's going to be very difficult now to dethrone this Manchester City side. Where, Pep may not have too many years left, regardless, the team has just got such a great backbone. It could be competing for years to come. So get ready, guys. It could be an era of dominance there, like we saw with Manchester United, Sir Alex Ferguson side. So again, Manchester City win. I correctly predicted it. So that's 6 correct positions. And I gotta say, that is really good for me. I think that is really, really good, actually. Typically I wouldn't really do that well, but I surprised myself here. It was actually okay in the end. I think I scored 46 points, which ultimately some really bad predictions, which I should have spotted, like the Brentford, the Manchester Uniteds, and especially the Burnleys, that could have even looked even better than what it did in the end. So I give myself, a little bit of a pat on the back. I actually think I did all right here today, actually. So never really give myself too much credit with anything in general, so I'm really pleased that I can actually take a really good table prediction here. So guys, this wraps it up for another video. So the next couple of videos are going to be related to the Euros. Thank you guys so much for watching. It's terrifically appreciated. If you guys can tell me your best and worst prediction for the Premier League, let me know in the comments down below. Please do smash the like button if you haven't done so already. It does help. Please do hit the subscribe button too. It really helps. And please share the channel too. All 3 of these things are free to do and they really, really help. Thank you guys so much for watching. You guys are legendary if you're studying this video. And as always, I'll see you guys soon. Take care, everyone.